Hi guys! I thought I would do a little bit of a read aloud from Walk Two Moons because I figure I'm really missing our read aloud time, so you might be too. And I don't want us to wait so long because by the time we come back to school, you might have forgotten the story that's been happening. So, remember where we left off, it says, oh yeah, remember that this guy came over and asks for Mrs. Winterbottom at Phoebe's house. And remember she lied? She's like, I think she's here, but I don't really know where she's at, that kind of thing. And then she's like, yoo-hoo, Mom. And of course, her mom wasn't there. And then she ends up, she says, I thought she was here. She's not here. And he says, is Mrs. Winterbottom your mother? Yes, would you like to leave a message? No, I don't think so, and he walks away, remember? Which was kind of weird, so we didn't really know who this guy was. So, now it says that they ran all the way to Mary Lou's. So I think Mary Lou is maybe a neighbor. So, this is called The Message, this chapter 9. On the way to Mary Lou's, Phoebe said, Mary Lou's family is not nearly as civilized as ours. In what way? I asked. Oh, you'll see, Phoebe said. Mary Lou Finney and Ben Finney were both in our class at school. At first I thought they were sister and brother, but Phoebe told me they were cousins, and Ben was living with Mary Lou's family temporarily. Apparently, there was always at least one stray relative living at the Finneys temporarily. It was complete pandemonium at the Finneys. Do you know what pandemonium means? It means like chaos, like craziness. Mary Lou and her older sister and three brothers had an older sister and three brothers. In addition, there were her parents and Ben. There were footballs and basketballs lying all over the place, and boys sliding down the banister, that's like that railing for a staircase, and leaping over tables and talking with their mouths full and interrupting everyone with endless questions. That does sound pretty crazy to me. Is your family like that? I don't think so, right? Phoebe took one look around and whispered to me, Mary Lou's parents don't seem to have much control over things. Phoebe could sound a bit prissy sometimes. Mr. Finney was lying in the bathtub with all his clothes on, reading a book. That's pretty silly. He's lying in the bathtub with his clothes on, reading. Maybe that's the only place he could go that was quiet. From Mary Lou's bedroom window, I saw Mrs. Finney lying on top of the garage with a pillow under her head. What's she doing? I asked. Mary Lou peered out the window. King, she's taken a nap. On the roof of the garage? Weird. When Mr. Finney got out of the bathtub, he went out in the backyard and tossed a football around with Dennis and Dougie, two of Mary Lou's brothers. Mr. Finney shouted, over here and that away and way to go. The previous weekend, we'd had a school sports day. And there were even some events for the parents, too, such as the three-legged race and pass the grapefruit. My father could not come, but Mary Lou's parents were there, and so were Phoebe's. Phoebe had said, the games are a little childish sometimes, which is why my parents don't usually participate. Her parents stood on the sidelines while Mr. and Mrs. Finney ran around shouting, over here and way to go! In the three-legged race, the Finneys kept falling over. Phoebe said, I wonder if Mary Lou is embarrassed because of the way her parents are acting. I didn't think it was embarrassing. I thought it was nice, but I didn't say that to Phoebe. I think that deep down, Phoebe thought it was nice too, and she wished her own parents would act a bit more like the Finneys. What do you think? Do you think that she really thinks it's embarrassing, or do you think, maybe she does wish her parents would kind of be a little bit silly? Because remember, Mary Lou's parents not Mary Lou's, but Phoebe's parents are a bit like stuffy. Remember, they're like, and then they sit properly and they never joke around. I wonder if she kind of wondered or wishes maybe they were a little bit more silly, maybe. Lost my spot. Let me find it. She couldn't admit this, though. And in a way, I like this about Phoebe, that she tried to defend her family. On the day that Phoebe and I went to, and I met, on the day that Phoebe and I met the potential lunatic and then went over to Mary Lou's, a couple of other peculiar things happened. Remember, peculiar is kind of like strange. We were sitting on the floor of Mary Lou's room, and Phoebe was telling Mary Lou about the mysterious potential lunatic. Mary Lou's brothers, Dennis, Doug, and Tommy, kept dashing in and out of the room, leaping on the bed and squirting us with squirt guns. Mary Lou's cousin Ben was lying on her bed, staring at me with his black, black eyes. They looked like two sparkly black discs set into big round sockets. His dark eyelashes were long and feathery, casting shadows on his cheeks. "I like your hair," he said to me. "Can you sit on it?" Remember, because she has really, really long hair. "Yes, if I want." Ben picked up a piece of paper from Mary Lou's desk, lay back on the bed, and drew a picture of a lizard-like creature with long black hair that, as it ran down the lizard's back and underneath its bottom, became a chair with legs. Underneath this, Ben had written, "Salamander, sitting on her hair." "Very amusing," Phoebe said. She left the room, and Mary Lou followed her. I turned around to hand the drawing back to Ben, just as he leaned forward and mashed his lips into my collarbone. His lips rested there a moment. My nose was pressed into his hair, which smelled like grapefruit. Then he rolled off the bed, grabbed the drawing, and dashed out of the room. Did he actually kiss my collarbone? And if he did, why did he do that? Was the kiss supposed to land somewhere else, like on my mouth, for example? That was a chilling thought. Had I imagined it? Maybe he just merely brushed against me as he was rolling off the bed. On the way home from Mary Lou's that day, Phoebe said, "Wasn't it, loud there?" "I didn't mind," I said. "I was thinking of something my father once said to my mother. 'We'll fill up the house with children, we'll fill it right up to the brim.' But they hadn't filled it up. They just had me and them, and then it was just me and my father." When we got back to Phoebe's house, her mother was lying on the couch, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. Phoebe asked, "Is something wrong?" "Oh, no," Mrs. Winterbottom said. "Nothing's wrong." I don't believe it. Then Phoebe told her mother about the potential lunatic who'd come into the house earlier. This news upset Mrs. Winterbottom. She wanted to know exactly what he had said, and what Phoebe had said, and what he had looked like, and how he had acted, and how Phoebe had acted, and on and on. At last, Mrs. Winterbottom said, "I think we had better not mention this to your father." She'd reached forward as if to hug Phoebe, but Phoebe pulled away. Later, Phoebe said, "That's odd. Usually my mother tells my father absolutely everything." "Maybe she's just trying to save you from getting into trouble for talking to a stranger," I said. "I still don't like keeping it a secret from him," Phoebe said. We walked out onto her porch, and there, lying on the top step, was a white envelope. There was no name or anything on the outside. I thought it was just one of those advertisements for painting your house or cleaning your carpets. Phoebe opened it. "Gosh," she said. Inside was a small piece of blue paper, and on it was printed the message, "Don't judge a man until you've walked 2 moons in his moccasins." Walked 2 moons. Something to do with that. "What an odd thing," Phoebe said. When Phoebe showed the message to her mother, Mrs. Winterbottom clutched at her collar, like that. "Who could it be for?" Mrs. Winterbottom asked. Mr. Winterbottom came in the back door, carrying his golf clubs. "Look, George," Mrs. Winterbottom said. "Who could this be for?" "I couldn't say, really," Mr. Winterbottom said. "But, George, why would someone send us that message?" "I couldn't say, Norma. Maybe it isn't for us." "Not for us," Mrs. Winterbottom said, "but it was on our steps." "Really, Norma, it could be for anyone. Maybe it's for Prudence or Phoebe." "Phoebe," Mrs. Winterbottom said, is it for you?" "For me?" Phoebe said. "I don't think so." "Well, who is it for?" Mrs. Winterbottom said. She was awfully worried. I believe she thought it came from the potential lunatic. And we'll stop there. Next time, we will have chapter 10, which is called Huzza Huzza. Remember I told you about that word? It's kind of maybe like a hooray or something, not sure. So, I wonder who the message is from and who it's for. A little bit of a mystery. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that chapter, and hope you're waiting for the next one.